Hi guys, welcome back. So today I actually have a really special guest and I'm super excited for you to meet him. Dr. Horning and I went to school together, and believe it or not, now you guys sort of know my backstory that I went to chiropractic school in part to figure out why I had low back pain. And in that process, I was introduced to functional medicine and got a handle on my gut and hormones and all sorts of wacky stuff that was going on with my health. And Dr. Horning was the one who connected my gut to my low back long before anybody else did. And my story kind of tails in with the ileocecal valve, the leaky gut, the fact that I was an undiagnosed celiac at the time and was still eating gluten. But I wanted to get Dr. Ben on to talk about the ileocecal valve and how applied kinesiology chiropractic can particularly be helpful for that. And just for any of you guys who are SIBO newbies or maybe have not been on all of the summits like a lot of us have, the ileocecal valve is just a sphincter. It's a muscle band that connects the bottom part of the small intestine and the very beginning part of the colon. So the beginning of the colon is called the cecum. The last part of the small intestine is called the ileum, thus the name ileocecal valve. And it is as much of a gatekeeper as you're going to get in the world of SIBO. So if you have SIBO, you have too much bacteria in the small intestine. Chances are the bacteria came from the colon to begin with, and it's a dysmotility problem. I mean, I have dozens of videos on that topic. But if you're looking for one culprit to really look at and treat potentially to make sure that your bacteria stay in the colon and out of the small intestine like you would want to treat SIBO, the ileocecal valve is going to be one of those really important things that you need to evaluate or have evaluated by a chiropractor who actually knows how to do this kind of work. So Dr. Ben, welcome. I'm so excited. This is long overdue.
Hey, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Now, remind me, where do you practice again? I know you're in Southern California, but what town are you in?
You know what? I'm located in Laguna Hills, California.
Okay. I thought Laguna, but I wasn't totally sure. We both went to school in Whittier, so I knew he was in Southern California still. Great. Well, yeah, if any of you guys are in or around Southern California, I would totally recommend Dr. Horning. The long and short of it is back when we were in classes and we were learning how to adjust, Dr. Horning was always one of the kids that went above and beyond and went to different classes and different lectures and weekend classes and learning how to be a better adjuster. And one of the things that he was taking that I'll always remember you for is taking classes on applied kinesiology. And some of you might be familiar with this. I'll let Dr. Horning explain it more, but it's a technique that blends muscle testing with more traditional chiropractic adjustments and uses that to hone in on areas of dysfunction in the body. And now I never took those classes, but Dr. Horning and a couple of my good friends did. And I was just joking with him before we started. I was always the willing guinea pig. Like, hey man, if you could figure something out and help my low back and help me feel better, go for it and teach me something in the process. And every single time, if he was able to adjust my back and do this one adjustment that nobody else could do, he would also note every single time, man, your ileocecal valve is garbage again. What are you eating? What are you doing that's taking off this ileocecal valve? I kind of shrugged. It's like, I don't know. I remember telling an intern, Derek Schinnerly, who had also taken some of the coursework back in the day. I remember I told him and he was like, well, what did you eat that day? And the two of us somehow deduced that it was like pumpkin seeds and they were too, like the little fragments were irritating my gut somehow. Side note, it was not pumpkin seeds. I was an undiagnosed celiac at the time, had the antibodies full blown everything, and I was still eating gluten. I was eating what I thought was healthy, but it was still royally flaming out my gut, royally taking off my ileocecal valve and contributing to this dysfunction. And I remember too that when I did my first kind of round of leaky gut cleaning up and antimicrobial work and started to really address my gut, again, Dr. Horning would adjust me and he would check my ileocecal valve. And I remember you remarking, hey, this is the best your ileocecal valve has been ever. Like ever since I've been evaluating you, and we didn't have to do the adjustments nearly as frequently because they would actually hold. And my back was getting better at the same time as my gut. So I feel like I just talked an awful lot, but Dr. Horning, can you tell me a little bit more about AK? I mean, I know about it, but a lot of my listeners probably don't know much about AK. Kind of what is your background with it? And give me some, for instances of like what AK can do and how it gives you a different lens to evaluate the human body.
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been classically trained in applied kinesiology. And so what that means is kinesiology is the study of motion and how do you apply it from a neurological standpoint. So if you go to school for kinesiology, you're studying more of how the body moves, but applied kinesiology is a little bit different. It looks more at the neurology behind that. And so what's interesting with the technique is muscle reactivity related to internal and external factors. So you could have large intestine or small intestine issues affecting the low back as opposed to a strain in the low back. And through certain types of neurological muscle testing, we can figure out if it's coming from the back or if it's coming from internal issues. And then if it is coming from internal issues, what is going on internally to cause this? So you could see certain patterns that show up physically, which could be symptoms of an underlying cause, which is the real issue, which is why you could get adjusted a million times and still have a problem, because this might not be just a spine issue, but it might be a gut issue, or it could be an adrenal issue, or something like that. I grew up with it. So for me, I'm a second generation applied kinesiologist. And so for me, going through school and working with you, I had an inkling of what was going on, but through the studies of what I was doing on my off time, which shows what kind of, how intense it's been, just so everybody knows, Dr. DiNezza and I, besides going to school, we're taking weekend seminars. So practically learning 7 days a week. It was definitely a fun time.
We just went to different seminars a lot of the time, but we were hella nerds. It was great times.
Yeah. But it's cool because you can see what's going on neurologically internally. So this way, and it's a very, very much like an algorithm, like a computer programming system, but with the body, and lots of yeses and nos. So with you, certain patterns constantly showed up with the ileocecal valve. And then I would have to adjust you specifically to the pattern that showed up as well as handle it. And with the open or closed ileocecal valve, there are a couple of different factors that could be causing that. And that's important as well when you're talking about SIBO, because open ileocecal valve means the contents from the large intestine can go back into the small intestine and cause more of an overgrowth, or a closed ileocecal valve would prevent some of the bacteria from getting flushed out through the colon. So if you have a funky ileocecal valve, you can run into SIBO issues or leaky gut issues more than if that valve was functioning properly.
Yeah. And that's the thing too, like going back to what you said, that it's all really neurology at play, is that everything in the whole body is controlled by your nervous system. It's not just your muscles or your eyeballs or whatever. It's literally everything. Your endocrine system gets commands for when to make hormones and in what quantity and at what time of day. Like the muscles and the nerves that control that valve, that sphincter, get their controls and their signals from the nervous system. And that goes right back to brain, spinal cord, nerves. It's all the boss. You just have to, kind of know how to evaluate and know how to get all of the ducks in a row, so to speak.
Correct. And so when the valve gets stuck a certain way, it could affect the body in multiple different ways. It's called the great mimicker, because you can have all sorts of different symptoms and they're being mimicked by a chronically stuck, open, or closed ileocecal valve. And so you just have to look at the whole picture. I mean, why is the valve getting stuck, open, or closed in the first place? A lot of times this could be some sort of allergic reaction, or a histamine reaction, or a neurological reaction, even physical reaction, keeping it open or closed, and then finding out what the stimulus is and pretty much eliminate it. And I think in your case, it was a gluten, right? It was a gluten intolerance.
Yeah. And I think, like looking back, I got a copy of my lab results not that long ago, and I did have the celiac antibodies. And I remember thinking, oh, that probably means I have celiac disease, but I didn't want to get an endoscopy because I was pretty much just done with medicine at that point. Right. But yeah, I think it was the fact that I was still eating gluten, and I was doing like whole wheat and the healthy stuff, so supposedly, but the fact that I was an undiagnosed celiac marching around still eating an abundance of gluten, it was causing enough inflammation and autoimmunity that it was flaming out my body in a pretty big way.
Right. And it's it's kind of fascinating. It's just, you can't really see what's going on unless you're doing like lab work or you're doing some sort of protocol, like what I do with applied kinesiology, to see what's happening internally. It's not like you could just have X-ray vision and see how your gut's doing on the day to day. Because if you could, then you would make sure you're eating the right things constantly, because you could see if things are getting things are starting to look weird or not. It's kind of like having a messy car. If you have a messy car, you're going to know, hey, I should probably clean this. I should, take care of the car a little bit more. But if you don't have, if you can't see what's going on inside, sometimes things could slip. And so that's why it's important to be evaluated, and then see how your body is responding, because everybody seems to respond differently. I mean, there's definitely generalities, and things to obviously avoid on the macro sphere of it. But from like a person to person, somebody could have a certain reaction completely different to another person with a certain stimulus. So it's important to see what's best for you to optimally run the best you can.
Yeah, well, and it goes back to like the movement of personalized medicine, and a lot of what they talk about in my kind of sphere with functional medicine is, even people like, and everybody on my channel knows this already, I'm not big on SIBO protocols, quote unquote, because there is no protocol for it. It's not a standard set thing. There are certain things that you should and shouldn't do, in my opinion, but everybody who has SIBO is a unique snowflake of a person. And looking back, like with my scenario, and I strongly believe I had SIBO at the time, which makes sense if my Ileocecal valve was wonky for God only knows how long. I probably did have overgrowth of something, bacteria, fungi, something in the small intestine. But looking back, the steps that it took me to get better aren't going to be the same as somebody else. Like for some people, Candida is going to be more of a thing. For some people, a deficiency of probiotic good bacteria is going to be more of a thing. For some people, it's the motility. For some people, it's more the ileocecal valve. It's just a matter of like realizing that it's really tough to be objective about your own health and be your own doctor. And I think ironically, chiropractic kind of teaches us this the hard way, because I don't know about you, but it took me a while living here and moving to North Carolina. It took me a while to find a chiropractor who I really loved getting adjusted by and was comfortable getting adjusted by somebody else. And being a chiropractor reminds you that you can't treat everything yourself, because if you try to adjust your own damn neck, you're going to mess yourself up worse than when you started. And it's just like this weird reminder. So I think also the same applies for a lot of stuff within like functional medicine and SIBO. It's really hard to treat yourself no matter what the case, but it's hard to be objective, especially because we don't have X-ray vision. So you need either something like AK or something like blood work or some combination of both, where you could get some objective data and understand your body more completely.
Yeah, I agree. And in my sphere, I always tell people, don't muscle test yourself. Don't do things like that, because you do have a bias that can affect the outcome. So it's always good to have a fresh set of eyes that you trust. And then going back to with your case though, what's interesting was the small and large intestine usually are related to the low back. And so for you, we had to handle the ileocecal valve and clean up the diet before the adjustments would even hold. Otherwise, I believe you would get adjusted with hurt, right? If the ileocecal valve wasn't addressed and that specific adjustment I did wasn't done. Is that correct?
This will sound corny. Everybody except you. Yes. So if I got typical side lying, like if you've gotten adjusted by a chiropractor, you probably know what that is. If I had drop table work, side lying work, no matter what type of adjustment it was on my SI, it would usually aggravate it a bit. It wasn't debilitating, but it would piss it off for at least a couple of hours. With that one adjustment, and I can't even tell you what the name of the adjustment was now, I can picture how it was done, but that weird side lying position where you actually had to pull the underside ilium kind of up and out a bit instead of a normal side lying position, that one never flared me up. It immediately felt better. And it was the only one that immediately made the back feel better. And that's why you kind of turned into my drug dealer for a little while there, where I was like, Ben, I need you to do the thing. Come, let's go to the lab and can you adjust me? And you were the only guy on campus who could get this adjustment. Not even the guys in the clinic, the older students could do it. And again, like every time you check my ileocecal valve, it'd be like, you know, there's more to this story than we're realizing. Like, yes, the adjustment is helping you, but literally the next day it's going to be back to where it was. Something is preventing it from sticking.
Yeah, well, thanks for the compliment. But yes, it's true. I mean, what was showing up was a specific pattern that was throwing the back out. And so we needed to address what was pissing off the ileocecal valve and just get rid of it. And then this way the body could start healing itself. Otherwise, any type of trauma or any type of movement towards that low back might piss it off. So that's, we had to adjust in a specific way after the ileocecal valve was adjusted, and then it would work.
Yeah. Yep. I think that's very much true of my case. Now, I'm curious, I know you see a lot of ileocecal valve stuff now in your current practice too. How else have you seen this manifest? You said that it could be the great mimicker and kind of manifest as different symptoms or manifest as different things. Can you give another couple of examples? I know like anybody with SIBO, I think this would be really relevant for. So SIBO or IBS or any sort of like gut problems could be relevant for this. But I'm curious that you said it was the great mimicker. So I'm curious to hear what else it can masquerade as.
You know, one of the big ones I see is brain fog. So somebody that just has a hard time focusing. We call it neurological switching, where almost like, I wouldn't say it's like a dyslexia, but it's very, like you get things mixed up a lot. Or you're trying to find your words, but they're not coming out correctly. So I see that with a stuck ileocecal valve. Headaches I see a lot. So patients that constantly have headaches. In fact, it's one of, at least in my, a lot of times, these headaches they've had for years or migraines for years, I always go to the ileocecal valve. That seems to solve. In fact, I had a woman who, she was, what was it? I think it was like 5 years of headaches. And 5 years ago, we found out she really wanted to be healthy. And so she got onto fish oil. The fish oil was what she thought was what was going to help her out. But for some weird reason, that was really causing some sort of neurological reaction affecting the ileocecal valve, causing these headaches. As soon as I took her off the fish oil, worked the ileocecal valve, put her on flaxseed oil, she didn't have headaches anymore. It went away.
See, now the nerd inside my brain is like, what? Like, that is so curious. I'm so fascinated by that case.
Yeah, and so if we just went with general like nutrition, obviously fish oil should be good for you. And she had like the determination that I'm going to get my life together. I'm going to be really healthy. But ironically, it was that fish oil, which was affecting the ileocecal valve, these headaches and migraines. And as soon as we got rid of that and put her on flaxseed oil, the headaches just stopped.
That's interesting. Well, and it makes sense too, because if you think about, again, even like my brain is still a little bit stuck in like my kind of bias, which is the IBS and SIBO and dysbiosis kind of world. It makes me think too, again, if nothing else, if these ileocecal valve problems are making people more predisposed to SIBO or IBS or some sort of overgrowth in the small intestine and mucking up that environment, then that sure as heck could cause weird food sensitivities, headaches, chronic pain. Like it all kind of makes sense because all of these things that we've talked about so far, they're inflammatory reactions, but they've got to come from somewhere. And oftentimes it is the gut.
Yeah. And then the other thing that I found clinically, this is just from my personal opinion, what I've seen, I haven't seen any literature on it, but I found during like menstruation or right around that time of the month, I assume because hormonal changes are happening, it could affect how your body responds to certain foods. So I've seen people where they get these migraines or headaches and they think it's hormonal headaches. But what I found was a lot of the times their body can tolerate certain foods except during this one period of the month where certain foods that they usually could eat, they couldn't eat. And because if they did, it would turn on the headache. But then once the menstruation cycle was over with, they were fine again. So there might be a hormonal element to this as well. that you would have to look into when it comes to food sensitivities.
Yeah. And I could probably speak to that a bit, but I don't want to go over our time amount and make you late for your next appointment. So I want to be cognizant of that. That should be, this is an official reminder to myself in the future to do a video on that, because there is some immunology and some like chemistry to that. The gist of it is that most hormones have an anti-inflammatory and gut healing component to them. So if you are deficient in thyroid hormone or estrogen or progesterone or testosterone, if you're a man, then you'd be hard pressed to heal your leaky gut, have good motility, have a healthy brain. So really just things go to shit when any of the hormones are messed up, but particularly when you're deficient in them. But there's some relation with the menstrual cycle that I could get into in another video. Okay. Well, this has been so awesome, Dr. Horning.
Thanks.
Tell you what, would it be okay? Could you do like a demo on yourself? Is that even possible to kind of give viewers like an area of where would the ileocecal valve be, and kind of maybe just talk to us about what some of your workup would be? And then I'd like to wrap up and talk about like how somebody could find somebody like you, assuming they don't live in Southern California, because otherwise totally go see Dr. Horning. But is there like a doctor locator, or like is there a way to find somebody who's trained in AK? And then I can link that in the description to this video too.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the best way you could do it would just be looking for an applied kinesiologist online. You could just look into that locally. I know the IACAK website would have a list as well, and that's the International College of Applied Kinesiology. But okay, so what we would do is I would check the body's neurology first to find like a strong indicator muscle that which would show. So if I were to treat somebody, let's just do a quick example. This is kind of on a bigger scale just for dramatic effect, but I would do it probably a little bit differently. But I would challenge a certain strong muscle related just to the body itself. So say it was me and I was just challenging the shoulder and I was very strong. I could challenge the Ileocecal valve, which is located right here on the right hip. You got your belly button right in between, about right in here. We would challenge that to see if the muscle would get strong or weak. If it gets weak, then we would have to see if it's open or closed valve issue, and that would be by pulling it up or pulling it down. If it strengthens the weak muscle, or if it strengthens the weak muscle or weakens a strong muscle, it'll just give me an idea of which direction to go for. Now, typically, if we were going to handle this, what you would have to do is you would come right here, right in between, so right on the valve, on the right side, and you're going to be pulling up and towards the left a few times, about 3 or 4, unless it's gargling. If it's gargling, keep doing it, okay? Occasionally, you'll find a chronically open ileocecal valve that you have to close, and so you can always go the opposite direction. But usually, if you do the up and left and you're kind of just massaging it, sometimes I've seen that as a catch-all, handling both sides of it. But that's kind of like how I would do it. It's a quick, easy thing you could do. So if you're eating something that you're not quite sure of, you can always do that on yourself. Best case scenario, it works. Worst case scenario, nothing really changes.
Yeah, and like we said, I mean, it's hard to be objective about your own kind of stuff and like do your own muscle testing, but it's at least something that you could kind of explore. And I remember the kind of going one direction or the other, but I remember you were using my leg. It was whatever the muscle was that we used back in the day. So it's good to know too that you could use different muscles potentially.
Yeah, and in applied kinesiology, usually like the TFL or the rectus femoris would be used for large and small intestine. The deltoid's not really related to that. I just wanted to show something quick because I don't have the patient to show that on. Yeah,
that's fair. We are recording this during the whole COVID craziness too, so getting another body in the room without cooties, we'd have to have a little bit of a different protocol probably. So we'll save that for another day perhaps. But yeah, I really appreciate that. Dr. Horning, do you have anything else you'd like to share to kind of wrap up? Like I said, I don't want to keep you from your next appointment, but this has been so wonderful and very valuable information for my viewers. So thank you so much for doing this.
Thanks. Yeah. The last thing I just want to say on this topic is just take a look at yourself. Take a look at what days you do good and what days you don't do good, and then look between 24 and 48 hours of what you eat. And if it's too much of something, like if you're going way hardcore on the veggies and the fiber, that can affect the ileocecal valve. But if you add something new into it, like a different form of coffee or a different, I don't know, different breakfast item or something like
Fish
that.
oil.
And then, yeah, or fish oil or whatever's going on, something new. And then you see that you're starting to have some weird symptoms show up again. Then go back and just make a log of what that is, and then try cutting it out for a week or two and see if you do better or not.
Yeah. Yeah, be kind of
Cool.
deductive on yourself.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I mean, it was great to do this.
Yeah, thanks so much. I really appreciate your time and your expertise. And if it's all right, I'd like to link your Instagram and your Facebook or whatever, whatever sort of social media or website links. And then, like I said, guys, if you're in Southern California, Laguna Hills, right? You
Yeah,
said?
that's right. Mm-hmm.
Totally go see Dr. Horning. Tell him I say hi. After COVID's over, give him a hug for me. It's an official challenge. Now you'll know if anybody found you from this video, if some weirdo gives you a hug. And maybe I can have you on again sometime soon and we can talk more Ileocecal Valve stuff. I think that'd be a lot of fun.
Oh, I would love to. And thank you so much.
Cool deal. All right, guys, that's a wrap for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Drop a comment below if you want me to have Dr. Horning on again. I would be tickled pink to talk to him and grill him more on Ileocecal Valve stuff for you. Until next time, I'll see you in the next video.
Bye-bye.
Yay! And